It was the biggest advertising awards of the year. Cape Town was the venue and the city was abuzz with all in the creative industry, and we were there. I'm Jackie Null and you're tuned into Media and Money. Well, the topic under discussion today is the importance of industry awards. And in studio with me to discuss this, we have Loeries Chairperson Poniswa Besisa, Marketing Director for Kraft and Cadbury, Mike Middleton, Group Marketing Director at Ogilvy South Africa, Lauren Wolf, and Chief Creative Officer of Draft FCB, Brett Morris, who's also a member of the Loeries Board and Committee. But before we get into our discussion, let's check out what happened at the festival.
Well, I'm here at the 32nd Annual Loeries Awards. The Loeries Awards aim to showcase the very best in South Africa's advertising talent. And tonight, the awards are taking place for the second time in the mother city. Cape Town's ability to host a successful Loeries Awards ceremony in 2009 played in its favour as the city played host yet again to South Africa's leading advertising and creative awards ceremony. The 32nd Annual Loeries Awards were a three-day event held in the mother city where the emphasis was without doubt on having a good party. The three-day event culminated in two awards ceremonies celebrating the very best in print and electronic advertising. For Andrew Human, CEO of the Loeries Awards, a successful awards season is all in the judging.
We have over 160 judges. We have 3 international jury chairmen who sit over the main categories, and then I work with the jury chairman to oversee across all the panels and ensure that there's consistency, so that, for example, you don't have one panel who's really harsh and saying, okay, nothing here is worth gold, and you have another panel who says every entry is a gold. So what you do is then manage across the process. Once all the panels have given their input, then you look at it and ensure that there's a consistent standard throughout all the categories. We have 3,000 entries, and of those, less than 10% are likely to get an award tonight.
For ad agencies across the country, winning a Loeries Award is an incredible and commendable honour, not only from an industry recognition perspective, but also one from your peers. Not only does a Loeries win help profile an ad agency's creative talent, it also helps benchmark the industry's level of excellence.
Creativity is one of those things you've got to keep benchmarking. How competitive are you? How good are you? How fresh are you and original? How can you keep the standards up? How can you keep raising the bar? And even since I was a little kippy sort of in the business, you always looked up to our premier local awards is Loeries. I mean, I don't know how many years now, probably about 32 years or so. And it gets harder every year because, as I was saying to you earlier, you win one, you win a couple of Grand Prix. Every year the pressure's on. But I think we need that because you don't want to become complacent. You've got to keep re-energizing your staff, your clients. So this is the best way to benchmark it.
While the Loeries aim to showcase the best in advertising talent year on year, what the awards also showcase is the industry's ability to deliver sharp, conceptual adverts, often on budget, that also win international accolades.
South Africa's always done amazingly internationally, and I think we've slowly begun to celebrate what we have here as a country, and we've become proud of it, and our work has always shone overseas. And I think the standard is amazingly high and very good. And what we're often pressed to do, which is I think what impresses the international judges, is that we don't often have a lot of money, so the ideas have to be very sharp and they have to work all that much harder and be that much cleverer to cut through.
The 2010 Loeries Awards saw 4 Grand Prix winners, which included a win for Johannesburg-based BWB Group for the 2010 FIFA Soccer World Cup closing ceremony, as well as a Grand Prix win for Alan Gray's Legend commercial, produced by King James. The King James ad agency also won the most awards on the night. But for those that didn't go home with the Loeries Award, the message was clear. Keep creating powerful, conceptual, integrated advertising that not only delivers on creativity and effectiveness, but also helps sell a product.
Well, awards just a cherry on top. You know, it's a fantastic pat on the back for a job well done. But at the end of the day, we've got to do that job, and that's the first step. You know, sometimes people leap straight to the award, and actually it's about doing the great work. You're not always going to be recognized. On a bad day, judges don't see it, or something similar might have been done. But if you do great work, you're going to sell product, you're going to achieve solve the problem the client has, and that's the most important thing.
With the 2010 Loeries Awards officially over, it's now up to the creatives across the country to deliver compelling submissions for the 2011 Loeries Awards. And if 2010 is anything to go by, the 33rd season of the Loeries Awards is sure to be a good one.
That's come a long way from Sun City days, Poniswa. So it's known in the industry as the biggest party of the year in terms of advertising the Loeries Awards. So, and we all know it's not just an advertising party, isn't it? So, Poniswa, if you could just take us briefly through what was different from the Loeries this year versus last year.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thanks for showcasing our industry. We had a few introductions onto the Loeries because you have to keep innovating. We're in the creative industry. So we introduced what we call the Ubuntu Award, which recognizes advertising that does good in the society, into community or the environment. So we introduced that this year. One of the other big deals that we had is the commitment with Cape Town, where we created Creative Week. So our festival week started on the 23rd. And it's part of the legacy that we would like to live in Cape Town, whereby Cape Town becomes the design capital of South Africa, or of the world for that matter, if we can.
It's got a Cannes feel, I must say, now that it's in Cape Town and red carpets and everything. But besides the glitz and the glamour, Brett, the judging process, do you think it gets tougher and tougher year on year?
I suppose it's tougher and tougher to do innovative and interesting work. So the more ideas that there are out there, the more difficult it is to come up with new ones. So, I mean, the judging is always tough, but the great work tends to shine through. It's not difficult to spot a great idea. I think coming up with them is probably the tougher part.
Yeah. So, Mikey, from a client point of view, I mean, you guys stepped away with quite a few awards. Congratulations. But from your point of view, we're just saying about how it is an honor for an agency. So, from a client point of view, what does it mean to walk away with a Loeries Award?
You know, from our perspective, we really need to connect with consumers and make sure our brands are relevant to consumers. So the Loeries are really important because it hopefully recognises work that breaks through real creativity and produces work that's not going to be wallpapery, that's going to stand out and get your brands noticed, which will hopefully create a longer lasting love affair between our brands and our consumers.
But it's a cherry on the top at the end of the day, because the bottom line is what's important, isn't it?
At the end of the day, the bottom line is important, but to get your stuff noticed, you've got to stand out from the crowd, and that takes creativity.
Yeah. Lauren, so tell us about the impact that awards have on the industry as an advertising agency. How important is it?
Well, I think it's amazing because firstly it does sort of reward and recognise the work, the extraordinary work that the industry puts in to the great brands. And at the same time, I think it's so important for talent, for young up-and-coming talent, to see an industry that's fascinating to them, that gives back, that is part and parcel of the fabric of our society. I mean, we all know how everybody loves ads. We all know how fascinated the consumers are just in the field of advertising. And I think particularly in South Africa, it's important that young people are attracted to this business because they have the ideas of the future.
But do you think that the ads, because let's look at it, if you walk into an ad agency, what do you see? Or first see all the awards, but do you think it translates directly into more accounts, more clients?
The awards themselves or the work?
The awards themselves.
Generated?
No, we're talking about awards themselves.
I think so. I mean, I think clients are interested in the work that agencies are doing and interested in the impact that work is having on products, goods, services, whatever the category might be. I don't think it's a case of, oh, I love that ad, I'm going to migrate to that ad agency. I think there's a lot more to it. Yeah. I think there are relationships. I think there's a track record. Right. I think there's
that's more important than the ad.
Absolutely, it's more than the work or the commercial itself.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think that a lot of what Lauren says is absolutely right. But what the Loeries does do for the clients is it does show which agencies are really pushing the envelope, which agencies are producing great work, and if you're not having a great relationship with your agency, and you are on the market for a new agency, it's actually a fantastic place to go and see who the agencies are that potentially could do amazing work on your brands.
But it's with the pressure though. Doesn't it put pressure on agencies, pressure on creatives?
You know, not necessarily. What we get given a business challenge, and our job is to solve it. And advertising is like innovation in any, or creativity is innovation in any sphere. So where does the pressure come in? The pressure is part of the job. You know what I'm saying? It's part of the job. That's what we do. The award, it is a cherry on top, yet at the same time it is critical from a benchmarking of the industry. It is critical from a benchmarking of the individuals themselves. So if you don't have any pressure and you're complacent in whatever sphere you're in the wrong business or sector.
Do you agree with that, Brett?
Yes,
Because
definitely.
don't you think you run a risk that the agency might lose sight of the client's objectives because we need to be creative and win awards?
No, well, I think the agency shouldn't lose sight. As you heard Mike Charlotte say earlier, it's really about getting the job done.
Yeah.
The awards are a nice sort of bonus at the end of it. But in fact, Monique was sent an article to me a while back, which I read, which was amazing. It said that award-winning campaigns are 11 times more effective at ROI than others. That's based on the Gunn report. They've been studying these things for many, many years. So it's not just about a pat on the back. It's about, as Mike said, standing out, making a connection with the consumer, and making sure that your brand gets noticed in the right kind of way. Not just to make a cool ad, but to achieve a business objective.
At the end of the day, because that is my question, is effectiveness versus creativity.
Yeah.
So would you say effectiveness for a client is really actually more important, because that talks about your bottom line?
Well, absolutely, but I think when you look at effectiveness from a client's perspective, we judging standout. Does the communication stand out from the clutter? Does it say what you want it to say? And is it aligned to your core brand values and personality? And you know, the client's job at the end of the day is to develop and stay true to the strategy behind that brand. Brief in what we need to be done on the brand, what the challenges are to the creative agency, and then be able to evaluate and judge the creative that comes back from the agency to ensure that it meets our objectives. So it really is a partnership between all of us to ensure that we deliver great work.
And we're going to talk about that in our next part. But my question to you is, would you stop using the agency if they stop winning awards?
You know, if you look at basically, if you look at what results we're expecting, we look diagnostically at what consumers say about our brands. So do they love our brands? Because if they don't, something's wrong. Secondly, that should translate into sales, and that should be a direct result of what we say and to the consumers through the great communication. If we're not getting results, then we've either got to go back and look at our brand strategy and understand why we're not connecting with consumers, or else we're working with agencies that aren't delivering great creative that is really going to be magical and connect with consumers and take our brands to a new level. So it's a lot of factors that come into the equation, you know, before you jump to suddenly deciding to get rid of an agency.
No, sure. And Lauren, your perspective on that from an agency side?
Well, I think Mark's absolutely right. You have to stay on top of the game. You have to make sure that the creativity is translating into effectiveness. And I think, we call it great work that works, quite simply. And this very sort of close bond between creativity and effectiveness, validated by exactly what Brett said. It's not one or the other. It's the two holding hands and actually working together. And I think what we're seeing, and in the South African industry, we have other awards during the year which look at effectiveness.
Right.
Look
Apex
at
Awards.
Absolutely. We've got the Apex Awards. We've got top brands where consumers actually choose which of the brands they love.
That's right.
We've got industry awards that actually recognize how the agencies are doing as businesses with their clients. So I think those are there to actually, be hand in hand. And I think what's really encouraging in the last few years has been the fact that many brands which are winning in creative awards are the same brands that you'll see at effectiveness awards.
We're going to have to leave it there, and we're going to say thank you to Lauren Wolf from Ogilvy, South Africa. Thank you for joining us, and the rest of you are sticking around with us for part 2.